Okay, I guess we'll get started. We'll wait, let the other people join in whenever they do. So, I know we have people from all across the globe. So, good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're joining from. And thanks for joining our webinar today. We'll talk about how enterprise organizations are reshaping SAP workflows through agentic AI-driven automations. My name is Gursimran, and I have my colleague Akansha as well with me for this webinar today. Um, and over the next 40 minutes, we'll show you how to move beyond legacy RPA or template-based document processing tools to achieve truly autonomous operations inside your SAP environment. So our agenda for today is very crisp. We'll cover why the need exists for a solution like ours, how we are able to solve typical problems in enterprise workflows, and then dive into a live demo of a couple of agentic workflows within SAP environment. And we'll follow that up with a couple of customer case studies where we have deployed such automations. And depending on how the time permits at the end, we will pick up some of your questions. So please feel free to add your questions in the Zoom chat or the Q&A section, and we'll go through some of those towards the end of the call. Um, so let's get started. To begin with, I wanted to talk about typical challenges that organizations face in document processing workflows, right? Most of these challenges primarily arise out of the fact that a lot of these documents are unstructured in nature, um, especially when it comes to documents which are either poor quality scanned PDFs or images taken by the field operation teams in low qualities. A lot of organizations have some semi-automated processes which they've set up, but they're largely inefficient because of a variety of different reasons, right? It could be low accuracy OCR tools, or it could be manual data entry and validations process, which is highly time consuming. And of course, long review cycles that tie up critical resources as well. On top of all of that, these processes also require a lot of IT bandwidth to maintain, which are some of the things that we at NanoNets through our agentic workflows are able to solve. So our AI agents are specialized in terms of being able to handle different variety of documents, whether it's invoices, receipts, contracts, claims, or any other type of document that you might be dealing with, right? Um, these agents are powered by our proprietary AI models. And these AI models are able to convert these unstructured documents into highly accurate structured output, followed by which we have our agents which are able to leverage agentic technology to not only limit themselves to data entry process, but also perform some of the validations and the business logics that you implement in your workflows. An example of this could be something like, let's say, matching line items of your invoice to a purchase order, or fetching a vendor ID for a given vendor from your SAP database, are things that are menial in nature, but add up when it comes to overall time that you're consuming for a process. So the agents are also able to take care of these steps and feed accurate data directly into SAP or any other ERP that you might be using for that matter. So, a brief introduction about us as an organization. At NanoNets, we've been building cutting edge AI solutions for the last 10 years. We have, over the last decade, now processed more than 5 billion documents overall. We work with more than 500 enterprise customers, and more than 35% of Fortune 500 companies are already using NanoNets in one workflow or the other, right? Um, Talking about where the complexity comes in when it comes to SAP workflows. So we understand different organizations have different workflows that are set up within SAP, right? Talking about accounting, it could be AP and AR automation or expense management. In procurement, you have PR to PO process or vendor management and onboarding processes. In supply chain, you have order fulfillment, sales order generation processes, or inventory management. And even in HR and payroll, right? Whether it's benefits or whether it is employee onboarding, all of these processes have one thing which is common, which is a huge mountain of documents that comes in and a large army of people that deals with those. We also understand that SAP is a great solution for enterprise organizations, primarily, and they're so successful because it is a very highly scalable solution. First of all, which is necessary when it comes to large enterprise organizations. It offers deep integration across the data that's flowing across different departments, right? So some of the processes that we spoke about on the previous slide have interdependencies on across multiple departments. You have finance, procurement, sales, supply chain, all working together with each other. And the way SAP is structured, it allows these teams to collaborate and manage all of these processes in a single place. And of course, the fact that there's a lot of industry best practices and standardization in the processes that they're able to bring in, which increases the consistency across your different workflows, right? So at Nanonets, our objective is not to replace SAP at all, but to be able to turbocharge the teams that are using SAP in terms of their data input workflows and overall document processing workflows. Now, in our experience working with different enterprises so far, we understand some of the main challenges that you face when it comes to SAP based workflows. These processes are still manually intensive. For if you're using any other solutions to automate parts of your workflow like data entry, etc., it's a very complex implementation process, and not every solution can integrate with SAP seamlessly. There are limited capabilities when it comes to the types of validations that you can set up, or even in terms of the document processing solutions. Accuracy is a challenge because most of the options that you have there are template based extraction solutions, which still requires a lot of human in the loop workflows. Now, these are again the challenges that we at Nanonets are aiming to solve for. And how we solve this is through a completely revamped approach in terms of how we look at these workflows, right? So compared to some of the older RPA legacy IDP solutions or even new age document processing solutions, one of the biggest benefits that you have with Nanonets is the ease of setup. It doesn't require months and months of implementation before you can even process a single document. All of our AI agentic workflows are powered by our proprietary AI models. We are not dependent on third-party technology. That also gives us the flexibility of being able to fine-tune these models into specific documents that your organization is dealing with. And these models are also perpetually and instantaneously learning, right? So the more documents that you process, the better the AI gets in its accuracy. And every single bit of human feedback is a training action. You don't require lengthy training cycles which go on for months or weeks. It's all happening in real time on the go. Um, Even something which sounds easy but is tedious, something like GL coding, where a lot of solutions are only restricted to rule-based GL coding. We have AI-based intelligent GL coding, which is able to understand nuances between different product subcategories and understand human feedback and changes on the fly and improve the accuracy of this automation as well. Through all of these interventions that and automations that we do for our customers, some of the business outcomes that we've delivered, and these are again in live steady state production environment, up to 90% reduction in manual labor in your current process. You're looking at anywhere between 3 to 5x reduction in your data entry costs, significant reduction in your turnaround times. It takes about 10 seconds for the Nanonets AI to process a single page, right? If you're spending 45 minutes on an invoice, you could potentially be looking at maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the different types of validations or approvals that you have as part of your workflow. Now, talking about some numbers, what this ROI would look like with just a couple of random examples, right? So, if you as an organization process, let's say, 100,000 invoices in a year, there's two ways we are able to add value to you, right? And there's more, but we are only going to talk about two for now. But let's say an average invoice is $1,000 for you, and overall, $1,000, 100,000 invoices brings your total payables to about 100 million in a year. And let's say there are vendor overcharging discrepancies of as minimal as 0.2%. It sounds very little, right? But that's $2 an invoice. And when you're looking at 100,000 invoices, it comes to $200,000 in a year. Now, if you have a smart AI agent which can cross-reference every single invoice that you're processing against historical invoices, historical cost of products, verify your contracts, and check if the pricing that has been charged to you is valid or not, flag any discrepancies, even with a 50% success rate, you're saving about $100,000, right? Similarly, the second way to look at this in terms of the time that you're saving, so I'll go back to the same number. If you're taking about 45 minutes for an invoice processing workflow end to end in a fully manual scenario, you're looking at a full team of about 25 FTEs to be able to process these 100,000 invoices in a year. Now, and I'll again come to the same benchmark of let's say we're not talking about 80% or 90%, we are only talking about 50% of your man hours being saved here. And instead of these 25 FTEs, you're now able to do this process with 12 FTEs. That alone gets you to a saving or to the magnitude of about $370,000 odd, right? And these are just two of potential levers in terms of improving your efficiency that we're talking about. Of course, there are more, and we can dive into them, and the whole webinar could go on. But at this point, I'd like to jump into practical aspects of it. So I'll hand it over to Akansha. She's going to talk about a couple of processes, and we are going to demonstrate these agentic workflow live on the demo on the call today. I see somebody's raised their hands. I'll request you to kindly drop your questions in either the Q&A section or the chat section, and we'll get back to you towards the end of the call. Thank you. Over to you, Akansha.
Thank you, Gursimran. Hi, everyone. I'm Akanksha. So today I will be walking you through live demo of how Nanonet's agents can automate some of these workflows. For the first demo, I'll play the role of a sales manager in a cement company. Now, in this role, I receive hundreds of purchase orders daily, and I'm required to create sales order for these within an hour so that all the products are dispatched and delivered timely. So, in a typical flow, for every purchase order that I get, I have to find the customer in SAP, locate the products in SAP, see if the price match what is present in purchase order and what is internally maintained in our system in SAP. And if it all looks good, I go ahead and create the sales order. Now let's see how I can set up a Nanonets agent to automate this flow and reduce my manual effort. So this is our platform where we can set up agent. Now, to set up the agent, it is as simple as describing this workflow in plain English to the agent, where I describe that, okay, first extract all the data points from the purchase order, look up the customer, look up the product, perform a price match, evaluate the confidence score. If confidence score is above certain threshold, then go ahead and create the sales order. With this, the agent automatically understands what tools to use and sets up the workflow. Now I'm going to go ahead and upload one of the purchase order to the agent. In a typical scenario, I will not have to come to the platform and upload it. I can automate it via, say, email forwarding, automate it via API, or say any other cloud storage where I get my purchase orders. Now that the purchase order is with the agent, it will perform the steps that I described in the prompt step by step. Now let's see in the backend what the agent is actually doing. So we had mentioned that extract the information from the purchase order. So now it has extracted all the data points that is present by sending it to one of NanoNet's models, and it's also generating a confidence score. It's extracted the customer name, the line items. As next step, it would try to identify if there is a customer present in SAP. Now, if you see it, what it does in backend is it gets all the customers from SAP and see if there's a matching customer for what is present in the purchase order. In this case, it found one active customer, and now it has gone to the next step. If you see here, it says it decided to execute an AI call. So next step is to identify what the products are. So if you see here in this purchase order, there are two products, concrete 4000 PSI and cement. What it would do again is look at all the product descriptions that is present in SAP and try to find related items. For the first product, it found one, and now it has moved on to the second. Here we see that for second, it found around 5 related products. So again, these matches, they are not string-based or rule-based. What agent does is it makes a intelligent comparison, taking context into picture, taking what is written, the words, and then produces a match score. Now, here, if you see in the first case, it found one product and the confidence score was 98. In the second case, it found another product, Portland cement, and it goes ahead and set, like, we have instructed at this point that the confidence score should be above 94 and only then it should pick up. So in both the cases, it found one. So now it will proceed to do a price matching. So if you see, it computed the price and it is a match. So it will go on to create the sales order in SAP. So it has now created the sales order. And if you see in that entire process, there was no need for any manual intervention. And I will go ahead and show you this sales order in SAP. So for the customer, it has picked up the two items and created this. Now, one point, if you see here, of the three, we know it picked up the right product. But if you see, there were other very closely related products, and for which as well, the confidence score is very high. We don't want to be in a situation that we upload and for some reason, the model picks one of these. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and instruct that always remember, if you see something like a cement, it should be mapped to Portland cement type. Now I'll go ahead and instruct this to the agent. Now, if you see, it's a pop-up which says that, shall I remember this? It understood that is something for future references. Now, this is all it takes. Plain English, I tell the agent to remember, and it stores it in memory. And now let's see if I upload another PO with same product, what is the confidence score that it returns? Now, same customer, but choosing a product called cement. Let's see how the agent performs here. So While the agent is processing this document, let me walk you through a customer story. So we have deployed a very similar workflow for one of our customers. It's a large FMCG brand in the Middle East. When they came to us, their operations team was overburdened. Uh, they were running in a backlog. They were not able to create the purchase orders, a number of purchase orders into sales order that they were getting in a daily basis. And they were growing as well. So they needed a solution that could automate and reduce the burden on the uh, operations team while meeting their SLAs and uh, creating all the sales order in a timely manner. So we implemented a very similar flow where the nanonets model would extract the data points from purchase order, look up customer SKUs, do a price match. If there's any discrepancy, flag it for review. If not, go ahead and create that sales order in SAP. With this, what the team saw was a 2x throughput increase of SO creation per sales operation team member. This solution allowed scaling of business while enhancing the productivity of the team. So at the end of the day, they were able to adjust for the scale of their business with the same team size. So now let's go back to what the agent is doing with the PO. So it has, again, similar to what we saw before. It extracted all the data points. It has found the customer. Now, if you see, it has picked it directly. It did not come because we had said that set it to 100% confidence score. It went ahead and directly, without comparing with the rest, it went ahead and directly picked this product and again created a sales order in SAP. So this was a journey for purchase order to sales order. Now let's go back to another workflow, which is AP automation, the invoice side of it. So for this, I'll play a role of an accountant for a hardware company. And in this role, I receive more than 1,000 invoices in a month. And for each invoice, typically I have to find the corresponding purchase order in SAP. Again, do the same two-way matching between invoice and purchase order, that all the line items are matching, the final value is matching, the quantities and the price. Once I've reconciled this detail, only then I create the invoice in SAP and proceed with approving the payment. Let's see how agent can be set up for this. Here again, for the setting up, it remains the same, where I describe the flow to the agent and it automatically knows what tools and what workflow to set up. So I will go ahead and now upload an invoice here. Again, right. So in this process as well, it will first extract all the data points present on the document, try to find the supplier, try to find a purchase order related, if there's a purchase order for that supplier, for that purchase order number, do the comparison, and then if all looks good, it goes ahead and creates the invoice. So let's see how the agent is performing these steps. So the first part is calling the nanonets model to get the output. So it has extracted all the key fields. That is, you see the seller name, PO number, dates, final value, and all the line items. Now, after this, it will go ahead and try to find a corresponding supplier based on the seller name. It found one. Then it goes ahead and tries to search for a purchase order for that supplier if it exists. It found one and it has fetched all the details for it, all the line items, the quantity and the price linked to it. So once it has the purchase order details and the invoice, it will go ahead and compare if the values match. Again, whenever it's doing any match, it is not a rule-based match. There is some intelligent component associated to it with configurable thresholds. So we can always tell that, okay, for a price, if there's like a difference of 5%, accept it. If it is beyond certain threshold, ask for review. So in this case, if you see, there is it could match with a score of only 60%, and it has been instructed that only if it is above 90%, the match score, go ahead and create an invoice. It found some discrepancy in price between what is present in purchase order versus what was in invoice. It might be a case that there's some error in our internal system or something that the vendor went wrong and sent a wrong invoice. So here, in case in this situation, I'll have to go back and check. So what I'll instruct is, okay, flag for review and stop. So I stop the flow. I go back and check with my vendor what is it, and I get a corrected invoice. Now we'll see what happens when I upload a correct invoice to the agent. So let the agent process this invoice. In the meantime, I will go ahead and share another customer story with you. So this is an Indian paints company. Their process involved comparing or doing a three-way match across bill of lading, invoice, and delivery note. It was a manual process before, and their main pain point was their entire operations team was chasing documents, spending time, a lot of time in data reconciling, data entry, and they wanted to use their time on higher value activity. So we implemented a very similar flow where we get these three documents from them, do a three-way match. Again, if there is any discrepancy, raise for review. If not, go ahead and create that invoice in SAP, which they now go on to SAP and approve for payment. What it resulted in was an 80% reduction in manual effort, and it allowed their team to focus on other high value activities rather than just chasing documents. Now let's see what, with the correct invoice, what did the agent do? So if you see if it has done the same steps again, it extracted all the data points, all the line items, found the supplier, found the purchase order as before. And this time, since the values were all correct, it got a very high confidence score of 100%. And then it has gone ahead and created this invoice. We can see in SAP, the invoice is created. It is created and it gets linked to the purchase order number as well. So yeah, these were the two demos from our end. Now we will take up questions that you have. Request you to post the questions on the chat.
There are a few questions that have already come in. So I'll start with a few of them maybe. So one of the questions was, how does the AI engine extract the data and what is the accuracy? Is it built on any other AI for like Gemini or ChatGPT? So basically, we have our proprietary AI models, which are among the best models in the world today when it comes to document processing automations. I've also posted links to a couple of benchmarks that we've done in the last few months where we compare ourselves against the leading LLMs of the industry. You can go through those benchmarks to see how we stand against those. Additionally, the next question I see was, what does human in the loop look like in case of rolling back mistakes? And how does the handshake happen between SAP and Nanonex. So in terms of that, that's a great question. First of all, in terms of rolling back mistakes, um, see, the AI training is directly dependent on the actions that you are performing, right? So there's a few ways where the AI will bring in a human into the loop. It's either one of the validation rules, like you saw, where the invoice and a PO had a mismatch, is when the AI brought in a human to have a look at the process, it didn't continue, or depending on the confidence thresholds. Now, for our demonstration today, we set the confidence thresholds at a 90%. But if the process is highly critical, you can even raise those thresholds to 95%, right? So depending on what that's comfortable to you. But even beyond that, it learns from human inputs. And in case you realize there has been a previous incident where the human input itself was incorrect, you can simply go to that task and kind of rerun it and provide the correct input the second time, and that will override the previous training, so to speak. Additionally, within your team, you can also control which people can actually train the AI models. So not everybody who's running the process will have the access to be able to do that. Um, I hope that answers your question, Haksing. If there's any follow-up on it, you can feel free to post it on the chat. Another question I see is, how do you integrate with SAP, right? So the integrations are via standard SAP protocol. We utilize OData services to fetch data and post transactions. Um, Essentially, the agent acts as a digital user, and all the SAP validations and security roles are respected in this scenario. Um, Another question I see is about the data security measures, governance related policies that are in place at Nanonets. So we are ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We are also HIPAA compliant in case you're dealing with PII or PHI data. And we are also GDPR compliant as well, right? Um, Additionally, the next question I think is, um, how do you handle failures via low confidence? If you get a lower match score, what happens? So this behavior is essentially in our control. How we set this up is completely dependent on the human or the admin team that's actually setting up the agent. So if you want the process to be terminated the moment a certain value or a certain match falls below a confidence threshold, it can be configured to do that. Or if you want somebody in your team to get an email alert, or an alert on Slack or Teams, for example, that hey, they need to go and review this specific document because of so and so reason, those alerts can also be configured. So the automation really only works when the AI is augmenting human workflows. I don't think any real world enterprise business process will ever reach a stage where you're 100% human-less processing, because the challenges will always exist when it comes to the nature of the workflows themselves. Another question I see here is, can the notifications for review or low confidence? I think I just covered it now as well. Um, Additionally, I see another question, which is, can the agent check for stock availability before creating the sales order? Absolutely. Again, um, fully configurable. If your SAP is also the host to your inventory data, or GRN data, for example, instead of a two-way match for every purchase order, you can even set up a three-way match where an invoice is not validated just against a PO, but also against a PO and a GRN, right? So that's completely in our control. Um, can we set tolerance limits for price and quantity mismatches? Um, Short answer, yes. It's simply prompt based. So you can essentially add those instructions when you're setting up that agent in the beginning itself. No complex setup. Like, for example, if you're saying if the price mismatch on a PO is 0.05%, let the invoice be processed. You can set up those behavioral logics. Can the agent handle partial deliveries or partial invoicing? Yes. So the agent will always check for open quantities in SAP and create sales orders or invoices only for the relevant portion. The remaining quantity can be logged and stored in the memory, and any future invoices that come in would be able to then automatically retrieve that context and perform the relevant matching accordingly. Um, okay. How does the agent perform SKU or material matching between the customer's PO and SAP's master data? So it's a combination of two or three things. It's not a direct rule-based matching, as Akansha mentioned, right? So it's more intelligent in nature. So the agent would extract description from the line item, the quantity, SKU ID, if it's provided. It would also refer historical invoices or purchase order from that customer or the vendor that might have been processed before to see if there's a reference for an item with a similar description. And then, according to that, we would potentially be able to perform an LLM based matching, a reasoning based matching, rather, so to speak, and for every relevant field, right? I saw one of the questions was also about the invoice not being GL coded. That's by design. For this demonstration, we did not set it up, but if there's a chart of accounts which can be referred to, it would work exactly the same way that a PO matching or an invoice matching would work, right? So I can see there are a few more questions, but unfortunately we are at the end of time. So I'm just gonna put in my email ID on the meeting chat and also um, uh, the support team's email ID from Nanonets. So you can feel free to reach out to any of us in case you have any follow-up questions or you want to explore these agents for any other different use cases. I see one of the users wanted to explore the agent for collections, uncollected cash, etc. So happy to talk more in detail in a separate conversation, but really appreciate everybody's time today and patience while we went through this with you. I hope this was helpful and valuable. And yeah, thanks for your time. Have a good day ahead. Bye bye.